Okay, today's video will be a little bit shorter, I think. I want to talk about how pacing is affected by character development, description, and backstories. The idea is to balance those facets of writing, that's backstories, description, and character development, in such a way that they add to the narrative, they add to the story. And they can add and make the narrative better. They can also steal from the narrative and make it worse. Flash fiction has virtually no backstories, a hint of description maybe, and probably no character development. The nature of the genre is all about pacing, racy pacing writing. In fact, there's a guy in Melbourne who writes this style, and somebody complained that he's such a poor writer that he does no character development, and he came back and said, well, there's no need because my characters always die before I need to describe them. As I say in my other videos, I look down at my notes to stay on task and hopefully content rich. Now, description, we'll go through them one by one. Description is about painting the picture. And what can happen, I'll give you an example to be a little bit purposely out of balance. If the character walks out the back door of the house and then you start describing the rose bush and the colour of the rose bush and what was next to the rose bush and the development of the flower and the stamens in the flower and perhaps a bee pollinating the flower, and you spend so much time trying to make the reader smell this rose, they can get to the point where they go off. You've lost them because this could have added to the narrative, but it's got so long-winded that now it's stealing from the narrative. The main narrative is like the main course of a meal. So imagine you've got a Sunday roast and you've got the baked potatoes and the baked sweet potatoes and carrots and pumpkin and the roast lamb or beef or whatever's on the plate. It's beautifully served. You can add to that apple sauce. You can add to that gravy. You can add to that mint, bottled mint or sauce or whatever you wanted to add to enhance the meal. And backstories, description and character development are like, though that I'm using this analogy but the main course is the story. And if you swamp it with apple sauce, it destroys the main meal, the main deal. So backstories can enhance the narrative. I use backstories all the time. In fact, I use the backstories sometime to actually all lock together and actually make for a better ending. So I'm not saying don't have backstories, but you need to judge whether the backstories are relevant to the main narrative. Do they fit with the main narrative? Do they build and add to the meal of the main narrative, using my analogy? If they're too long, they will steal from the narrative. If you were to draw a graph of how the reader was feeling about reading what you're writing, it's the pacing that's holding them in tension. I used a couple of videos, the idea that you hook them early and then you hold the line in tension. You want them to be gripped in the story. And if you're spending too long in the backstory, you can lose them or lose the tension of pacing. So fiction swings and hangs, in my view, on the strength of the narrative. Every time I find a work where the backstories, the description and the character development are overdone, I invariably find a weak narrative. They've used the other add-ons to fill, and you need to get your pen out and get ruthless and cull fill. Look, don't let anybody trick you into that a certain word count is necessary. I need 60,000 words, or the publishers won't take any notice of it. Look, you need to write with the story idea that you have as being the main frame, the main skeleton of what you've got. You can hang these other things on it, but the word count is absolutely no measure of the quality of the work. Ogmandino, say his name rightly, has written some books that are only 15, 20 pages long that became bestsellers. Beautiful, down to the point, stories that he didn't want to be 60, 70, 80,000 words long. For him to have tried to write those stories in long form story would have destroyed them. They are brilliant like they are. So I'm going to say, if there has to be, the idea is to get perfect balance between the narrative and the backstories, the description, the character development. And if you can get perfect balance, great. But if there has to be an imbalance, lean towards keeping your pacing and less of the backstories, description and character development. I really do think that if you think about it and think about those that you've read and the books that have really gripped you, you'll find that there's some truth to what I've said in today's video. I wonder if you read my book Dream Bouncing, which I'm promoting. It's the only book that is co-written, and because I'm dyslexic and don't write too well, you need a co-writer to fix up my the way I put things on paper. I wonder if you'd look at what Jenny Sweeney and I have done together on Dream Bouncing by going to gradedreading.com, and there's some audio MP3 files there. You can listen to the first 6 chapters narrated and assess, in your view, have I got the balance? Because I do have backstories and I do believe in them, and I do believe in character development, and it's there. But is the balance right? Any feedback can be related back through the website contact details. Love to hear from you. This is Ronald Sharp from Graded Reading. Cheers.